everybody. This is Kenny. Welcome back to another edition of the Yak with MAC. Every road does end, and my journey is coming to a close, but the inspiration will be there forever. Listen to part one of my final series. Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny. Welcome back to another edition of the Yak with Mac. Hope you are having just a phenomenal summer, man. Can you believe summer is halfway over? And I'm just so privileged to be able to come to you today and to give you this news right up front that I won't be with T-Mobile past September 2nd. And I want to just use these last few broadcasts that I have to just really give that inspiration and advice that I've been able to talk about for these last, well, it's 2 years with T-Mobile and even longer than that. So last 3.5 years or so that I've had the privilege of doing this podcast, and I am going to continue on different platforms to do the Yak with Mac, and I'll see if I can get some interesting guests as well. But I thought it was just appropriate for me to really talk about and give some advice that I picked up, because one of the things that I always ask my guests were, what lessons did you learn along the way of your journey? And I know that that has helped so many people out there. I've had just all these remarkable guests that have been able to join me, and I'm going to recognize them on my last podcast on this platform. But I have to just say that I want to be able to now do that. Almost 25 years with the company. This has been nothing but a journey of love for me. You could probably see and tell, there's no bitterness or anything like that. Every single road, when you just use that analogy for a second, if we talk about a road, if I was to drive from here to California, eventually the road is going to end somewhere, right? We're going to run out of road. There's going to be an ocean. So every single road, it has to end, and this is where mine ends. And it has never felt like work to me. It has always been, even on those really tough days, particularly in my DM days, and I won't talk about those too much today, but even in the tough DM days, it didn't feel like work, man. It felt like a way of life. And it was a joy, and it is a joy still to get up every morning and get started early. And every single day, I couldn't wait to get to work, whether that meant like the last 2 years, going down to my basement or coming to this office. It didn't matter. I just couldn't wait to get started. And I want to share some lessons along the way. And my goodness, man, I've titled the book that I'm writing "A View from the Middle," because purposefully my career is going to be ending right here in the middle management, right? Whereas that I never got up to the director level, never aspired to do that, by the way. But there's a lot of folks that are levels below the level that I got to, and that was always very intentional. And I want to say, a lot of the folks that I've spoken to over these last couple of years, some things in their career happened by accident, but most happened intentionally. And I have to say, almost every single step in my career happened very intentionally. And again, what a joy it has been. It's not over yet. I still got another month to really get out and inspire you. And so this is not going to also be a series on the history of Sprint. Already been done, right? Because I'm retiring as a T-Mobile employee. And by the way, I'm using the word retire because there are some retirement benefits that I'll be getting, but I have been more busy with things lined up as I'm trying to launch this podcasting network. Stay tuned for that. As well as here in ministry, it has been very busy, and I am nowhere near the age where I'm going to be in a rocking chair somewhere. So I'm just using that word because once everything is over with T-Mobile, I am at the age and I had enough years where I can't collect some retirement benefits. But anyway, um, so this is not going to be a walk back through Sprint. This is going to be a walk back through Kenny. And it's hard for me to talk about myself because I don't know where it was along the line, but I made my career at some point. It was a long time ago. At some point, I made my career about others, totally. And that has served me extremely well. I can't tell you how blessed, the many blessings that's come back, to me, and the success that I've found once I really, really decided to make my career about others. Like, I didn't really care whether I got recognition or not. That wasn't always the case. My early days, man, yeah, get me that award, get me to Hawaii, get me to Miami, get me to be the best of the best. And I drove really hard for that. But then I really drove my people hard for them to be successful. And so I want to start there. And I opened up the first corporate store, Sprint store on Long Island, in Comac, Long Island. I got hired as a store manager. And here's my first lesson, and this is going to sound pretty simplistic. Hire great people. And I loved my last conversation with Holly Martinez, one of my last conversations. And Holly really talked a lot about leaving recs open for a long period of time and really taking your time with the hiring decision. Listen, I come from retail world. I know how it is. I know how it is as I've gotten to build some great relationships on the care side. And I love that we're all one now. But in order to really get the best possible hire, you have to be proactive. You have to talk to people. I know you can't have people apply unless you have a record. You can have conversations, before that, but you've got to really take your time and get different perspectives. And I remember that's what I did. Listen, a lot of things I'm going to talk about from 1998 are so irrelevant now. This is one of those that are still very, very relevant because 1998 was when I started. And hiring great people, I could tell you that that team that opened up that Comac store was spectacular. And we really did some great work. Now, listen, there's always going to be some clunkers no matter what you do. But I also remember that it took me a while to hire. I started hiring in January. I knew we weren't opening until June. So that kind of forced me to almost take my time. And we were able to hire well before the store opened so we could get everybody trained and everything like that. But I can remember just how many people that I turned down, that while I didn't know I was walking into this mysterious new industry, I did know retail, and I did know what I was looking for. I was looking for positive, upbeat people. Wasn't looking for experience back then, right? So I was looking for positive, upbeat people that were willing to do whatever it took for our store to be successful, because we were walking into a brand new venture and a brand new adventure. It can't stop there. You have to then develop your people. So this is number one, hire great people. And under that, you got to develop them. You have to spend that time. And that's not always easy, right? You have a million things swirling around your head as a store manager. And it was no different then. We had a lot of reports. We had accountability. We had to hit quotas. There were a lot of things that are still the same today. And but throughout that, I always made it a priority to spend that time with my people. It really paid off. There were several people from that opening crew, I would say five, that stayed with the company a long time. And one became a trainer, a few became Rams. There were others that stayed in the technical part of the business for a long time. It really was really great to see. There was two guys that went over to network operations and stayed for a long time. But that was, I don't want to credit myself, but any leader, that's your number one job, man. You've got to spend time and develop your people, whatever that looks like. And listen, there wasn't a ton of development stuff out back then, so a lot of it was I kind of had to create. And and I had to have that patience, right? Because I knew that from my first experience, when I first started, you guys have heard me say this before, that I didn't know my left hand from my right hand, man. I used to mess up people's accounts like anything. I'm sure there's still people wondering, hey, how did I get that $2,000 credit back in 1998? I'm sure I did that, unfortunately. And so that also made me a little bit more aware to be patient, that I knew that people learn at different paces. This was all new. We were all learning together. But you got to hire great people, be very picky, leave recs open longer, have other people interview. There was another store that was opening in Westbury, which is the second store on Long Island. And so I used the manager there. I used my district manager at the time to help me do second, third, even fourth interviews in some instances. Okay. Second thing is, I want you to think about this, because I know that our company still has room for this, and that's be innovative. No matter what position you're in of leadership now, there is still room to do something that's different. I would encourage you to read the book Blue Ocean Strategy. Blue Ocean Strategy talks about companies that started doing things that nobody else was doing. What are you doing right now that nobody else is doing in your space, whether that's in an office, in a call center, or in a corporate retail store? What are you doing that's different than what everybody else is doing? You want to be innovative and talk to your people because they will have the best ideas. I'll give you a couple of quick examples from those early days. We did flea markets, right? I'm not sure if that's the best thing to do right now. Well, we would pay like $50 to be in a flea market for 3 days. We would sell like crazy, man. It was just unbelievable. We actually would set up tables in Blockbuster Video, going way back, right? Hollywood Video. Shout out to John Stevens from Hollywood Video there. But we would set tables up where we knew people were at. And if it cost us a little bit money to do that, we did that. We set up a table in our King Cullen supermarket that was in the same mall. King Cullen is just a big grocery chain out here on Long Island. And so those innovative things really paid off. We got our name out there. People knew who we were and where we were and what we were doing. And so to be innovative, you just have to really be able to take a chance on yourself and take a chance on your team and be able to sell it to your boss. See, I didn't just do these without telling my boss. I said, hey, listen, this is what I think we're going to get out of this. Yeah, it's going to leave the store a little bit shorthanded, but we're not seeing traffic in the store just yet. When we do, I'm going to have to be able to cut back on some of those things. But if we get our word out there, our name out there, and we can, you know, bring people into the store, that's going to really pay off for us. We did customer training classes, and I know those morphed over the years, but I'll never forget. Don't be afraid to fail forward when you innovate, because I put together this whole plan. My team was great. They were the ones who came up with the idea. Thursday nights, 8 o'clock, we would train customers on our devices. We didn't have all that much to train them on, back then, but there were a lot of customers that just didn't know how to use the phone, even how to make a phone call. And we had just started with text messaging and a few other things. And so we called them in, we had refreshments, we got vendors involved, and the first night, one person showed up. We had put a lot of publicity out, RSVP, whole thing. I said, this is a big fat failure. I'm not going to do this. I remember calling my boss the next morning and coaching opportunity for him. He said, well, did you advertise enough? I think I did. Okay. Well, do you think this is going to be a good idea? Yeah, I still do. But I'm really mad that only one person showed up, and we did the class for the one person. And he said, okay, well, go back to the drawing board. And he hung up on me. And I was like, what? Why did he hang up on me? But he was just trying to show me that sometimes you just got to stick with those good ideas, and sometimes you got to fail forward. And we did the next class. I mean, we went back to the drawing board. 2 weeks later, we had 36 people that showed up, and then it just took off from there. I think that was probably the highest of amount of people that we had, but we consistently had 10, 12, 15 people coming every Thursday night. And it was a lot of fun to do that. It was innovative. It was something different. Nobody else was doing that. And so be innovative. And if you're just starting out your career in leadership, get the basics down first and then innovate. We didn't do that at first. About a year in, I think, is when we did the first customer class. Okay, I've got one more thing for you right now, and then I'm going to wrap this up. Have conversations. And this has been a lesson for me that I should have known, that really backfired on me here on the end, although everything has worked out just phenomenally for me. So don't hear what I'm not saying. But you got to have conversations with people, with leaders. Don't be afraid to do that. And once we got in virtual world, I think I might have shied away from that a little bit because I'm a great in-person person, and I've developed these skills, virtually over these last couple of years. And I want to give you an example. After 2 years as a store manager with no experience at all in this field, I became an area trainer. And it was something I'd always wanted to do. And I started with a conversation with our director at the time. I had invited her to my store meeting. We used to have store meetings every week. I invited her to it. She was a guest speaker. Afterwards, I said, hey, Karen, do you think I'd make a good trainer? And she just stared at me. And she said, what? Why would you want to do that? You're running a great store here. You're on your way to Pinnacle Club, is what called it back then. And I said, yeah, but I want to make this a career, and I want to do something a little bit different. And I want to really use some of the skills that I have in terms of speaking. And so she took a breath. She said, okay, I'll get back to you. And she did. A couple of days later, she sent me an email with specific things that I should be doing as I get prepared for the interview. You see, there was no openings at that time, but she was preparing me for when there was an opening. Had I not had that conversation with her, once the opening came, which it did a few months later, I was so prepared to go in and say, hey, I know I don't have any experience, but this is what I've done over the last few months. I took a class here, I took an outside class there. I got, my boss to come and critique, my meetings. There were probably about 6 or 7 really tangible things I did. I read this book on presentation skills, and I got the job. And so in that January, I started my next career journey outside of the store, and that was being a trainer. And I'll talk more about that on the next podcast on those roles of support that I had. But I have to tell you, when I spoke to Angela Porter Williams, my last podcast, I loved how she said you always have to have sponsors in the room, people that are going to sing your praises. You see, there's conversations that definitely happen as to, hey, should this person move into this position? Yeah, you know what? I worked with that person before. I talked to that person before. They were on that project with me before. And there's other people that can really sing your praises, right? And that never hurts. And as I thought back after Angela had said that, I thought back about how I moved into different positions in my career and how it was always someone who was in a room somewhere that spoke up about me and said, yeah, this is a good guy. I think he could do this job. You should probably take a chance on him. And we all need that. We're not on islands by ourselves. We need sponsorship. We need people that's going to sing our praises. And that only happens through having conversations. It certainly happens when you show that you can do good work as well, right? Because, yeah, I had a conversation with him. He's a good talker, but I couldn't tell you what he's actually done, So you want to definitely be able to back that up with some tangible things that you've accomplished and what you've done. All right, I'm going to leave it there, and I will be back in a week or so, and I will talk about my years in supporting leaders and what that was like and give you some hints and tips for that, because that's always a good place to go in your career as well. So hire great people, develop them, have patience, be innovative, think out. I hate to say think outside the box. That's one of those retire the cliches that I promised I wouldn't say, but I'll say it anyway, and then have conversations, build sponsors in your network. Okay, I'm going to call this series just my journey of love. This has been my journey of love over these last almost 25 years. For now, this is Kenny with the Yak with Mac. We'll talk to you in about another week or so.